I tell you what, I've never owned or seen a Squale in flesh. And I said to myself, when I'll buy one, I'll buy the best diver that they can offer, just to understand if Squale represents a solid brand or it's just another manufacturer made famous by YouTubers. So I pulled the trigger on the Drass Galeazzi, which was the highlight of Squale in 2021. Now, they made a limited edition of 500 items that was quickly sold out in 3 batches, despite the less accessible price. 1,200 Swiss francs plus custom fees doesn't feel to be a bargain, but if you look at the grey market prices, the watch is starting from 2,000 euros as pre-owned, and slowly my mind started to generate the idea that something must be valuable there, since it is so hyped. But in reality, wrong. We'll get back to this in a moment. Squale is on an ascending trend. From one year to another, the brand is delighting the audience with vintage-inspired divers, and after the success of the 1521 and the Sub 39, this year the brand proposed us a tool watch, the Squale Drass Galeazzi. And as I said, I've never seen or experienced a Squale. But with this occasion I said, this has to be it. If I'll buy this piece, surely I will capture the craftsmanship and the quality provided by the brand. But guess what? It wasn't easy to grab one. I basically missed the first 2 batches released, so I had to hunt for the moment when the watch was relaunched. And after 4 months of waiting, I bought it. I sent it to the States to avoid the huge custom fees, and a few days ago, boom, it arrived. The almighty Squale Drass Galeazzi, which represents a collaboration between Squale and Drass Galeazzi. So the brand offers the watch on a plastic case, which was intended to be an IP67 certified. Inside we have the watch that comes on a leather strap, and as an extra the microfiber strap. And both the straps offered cannot be used for underwater purposes. And as an extra to extras, we also have a spring bar tool, also a cool blue pouch. And as a short introduction, the historical Drass Galeazzi company, founded by Roberto Galeazzi, produced diving equipment since 1927, building from submarines to diving suits that broke world records at that time. Also, the Galeazzi company introduced the famous diving knives into the World War II scene, being hunted today by the niche collectors. Now, purpose-wise, this was intended to be a vintage-inspired diver, but built with modern materials that is supposed to serve as a reliable tool for modern or professional diving. The colors are compliant, the case as well, but the straps don't. To give you an example, the Certina DS Super PH 500M with the orange dial, which was made in collaboration with the VDST Diving Association, was provided on a rubber strap, plus an extra rubber extension especially made for professional diving. Where in this case, as I mentioned, we have 2 unusable straps for underwater purposes. However, as designed, definitely a good looker on paper. Diver, helium escape valve, the Galeazzi logo, vintage vibe, patina indexes, extra strap and accessories. What can I say? The ideal package that everyone is looking for today. But personally, I feel that Squale doesn't offer enough diver compared to the history, the capabilities and the craftsmanship of the brand. And you will see across this video the positives and the negatives, being very curious to know if you share the same thoughts with me. I mean, I am either not used with the 1521 case, or I don't understand why for a 500 meters depth rating case, this watch needs to have 16mm in height with a fat case back that puts the watch higher than the iconic Seiko Marine Master 300M. Now, the identity of the Squale Drass Galeazzi is a mix of multiple divers, starting with the 1521 case, inspired from the Squale Master, but with influences of great divers that made history across time, like the Tudor Marine Nationale or the Rolex Submariner from the 50s. As appearance, if you had the chance to own or enjoy a Seiko Marine Master 300M, the experience is almost the same. The watch sits tall, the case back is really big compared to the proportions of this diver, but the dial is pretty small despite the 42mm diameter. The dial makes it to look like a 40mm diver. As I explained in other videos, the size of the watch can be determined better by the dial size and not the width. As general specs, this diver measures 42mm in diameter, has 49mm as lug distance, 16mm in height and 20mm as lug width. The weight of this diver without a strap is 111 grams, which is a lot considering that my Explorer 2 on a bracelet has 146 grams. We have a 4mm thick sapphire crystal with an anti-reflective blue hue, 500 meters water resistance, and as movement the brand is proposing the standard self-winding Sellita caliber SW200-1 having only 38 hours power reserve. So the case has an unexpected asymmetrical shape, and even though the crown is positioned at 4 o'clock, The right hand side of the case has a straight facet at 3 o'clock that gives character and volume to this diver. And my expectation was to have the same shape on the left hand side, but apparently the case seemed to follow a rounded volume instead of providing symmetry. But being a borrowed case of the 1521 model, in general on the left hand side I know that there is the engraved Squale label that can be read across the left hand side of the facet and it makes sense. But in our context with the helium escape valve, I can't say it looks right. The good part is that the case is fully polished, and because of the angled lugs, also the polished bezel, the light is reflecting on each polished facet, providing a jewel aspect, making the watch to look more expensive than it is. The downside is because it is tall, it is easier to knock it against objects or scratch it. And the polished surfaces are not helping from this point of view, making everything visible. Now the polished bezel combo with the sapphire bezel insert works very well. I do love the idea of having lesser markers inside of the bezel because it provides that vintage aspect, especially with the patina color. And note that the sapphire insert is rounded just like the vintage acrylic ones. So the dial offers us a simplistic idea of what a vintage diver dial looks like, and I appreciate that. I love the squared markers, but the star of the show I find it to be the Drass Galeazzi logo, a cool accent that sends us to the vintage aqualung doxas of the 70s. The hands are made in the spirit of Le Plongeur hands, having the minute hand in orange, which highlights the immersive time against the bezel. Also the patina of the indexes and the hands in relationship with the bezel insert works very well, especially when the loom is very well applied, and in this case when the diver is fully charged, everything is loomed accordingly and even. It fades pretty fast compared to the other divers, but overall from the loom perspective, the Drass Galeazzi is on the good side of loomed divers. Another cool accent is the chapter ring, and I'm referring to the highly polished accent between the crystal and the dial, offering a mirrored reflection of the loomed markers when angled. However, getting back to the case, it is thick and very heavy, having 111 grams without a strap, and as a result the watch hangs on the wrist, changing the position from left to the right. Another problem is, as well as it happens on the Seiko Marine Master, the holes of the spring bars are situated somewhere on the lower part of the lugs, and from the comfort and the visual perspective, the diver is not that stable and the straps do not continue the shape of the case, leaving visible the polished spacing between the lugs, a thing that should not happen in general. And sadly the Squale Drass Galeazzi, it is a good looker, but it suffers from the accessibility and the wearability point of view. In terms of straps, in contradiction with the purpose of this diver tool, we have a stiff leather strap and a comfortable padded microfiber strap that still cannot be used for diving purposes, having leather underneath. Another noticeable thing is the Squale buckle that contains the logo but not sufficiently engraved in my view, as well happening on the crown. And as overall I would say that this Squale Drass Galeazzi is a diver with personality. The design is there, the spirit of a vintage modern piece is also there, but the caseback almost ruined everything, because this diver could have been as good with a depth rating of 200 or 300 meters without the need of a helium escape valve or a huge caseback. So I consider it more of a miss than a hit from the wearability perspective. So I am being forced to take it as a mission and seek to review the iconic blue 1521 model just to understand better the craftsmanship of the Italo-Swiss brand. And that being said, hope you enjoyed this second last video of the year 2021. And Brave Beaters was good this year and the Horloger Santa came up with beautiful surprises. So I want to wish you the same, lots of presents, happy holidays and Merry Christmas. But most important, be brave but stay safe.